So you were talking a lot about, Beth was talking about the families, Mary talked about the families, and now we're going to hear from a mom who's been really vocal over the years about what her family's been going through, and you know, this is really heartfelt. And Marci Scher joins us now.
Hello.
Hey.
Hi, how are you?
Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
How did it feel listening to all of this?
Everything hit home. Everything, every single one of them mentioned in one way or another has hit my family in the last 4 or 5 years.
So tell us about your home and your family.
So I have boy-girl twins who, my daughter is 14 and my son is forever 13. He had a very rare genetic disease that is a combination of 2 rare diseases. So the easiest way to explain his disease is like it's a childhood ALS. So we watched him go from a funky little toddler running around the house to a teenager who was bedbound, trached, and vented, and 100% dependent care.
And we have some pictures. 2003, I think it says
They were
there.
6 months old.
Aww.
Yeah.
So how quickly did the symptoms show up?
Well, he had symptoms at birth, but we didn't know what was going on at that point. We really started to see a decline in his health when he was 6 years old. And that was the beginning of our journey to really find out what was going on. And we went through a lot of geneticists and a lot of testing. And we finally got a diagnosis in July of 2012 was when we actually got the diagnosis of pontocerebral hypoplasia with spinal muscular atrophy.
That must have been agonizing to try and figure out what was wrong.
It was. In 2010, we actually went and saw a specialist who had told us that whatever he had was going to be rare. It was non-treatable, non-reversible, and terminal. And we continued just to keep pushing until we found out what was wrong. I think it was going to be more heartbreaking for him to pass away not knowing what caused it. So actually when we got the diagnosis, there was a huge weight lifted from our family's shoulders to know what it was.
Yeah, you were a mom on a mission.
I was.
Yeah.
Did they explain to you why your daughter didn't get it?
She's a carrier. It's basically the same as sickle cell or Tay-Sachs. So with every pregnancy, because my husband and I are both carriers, with every pregnancy we'd have a 1 in 4 shot of a child having the disease, a 1 in 4 shot of the child not being a carrier or not having it, and a 2 in 4 shot of that child being a carrier.
When did you know you were a carrier?
In 2012 when we got a diagnosis.
Okay, so there was no test that would have told you?
Not then. I'm sure the disease has been around for years, but then no. Now we put it out there to any family member that is related to us in any way, shape, or form, that they just have to go to a geneticist and say this mutation and this disease is in our family. We need to be tested for it. Anybody could probably go on the street and say, I want to be tested for this, but family members that are related to us, we try to really encourage to go and get tested.
With your knowledge now, I've run into a lot of people at GBMC who are going for genetic testing, young couples, middle-aged couples. Would it be tested for now as a routine?
Actually, it is there's a screening process called J-Screen, and I recently found out from a relative that his mutation is actually on that screening. But besides that, no, I don't believe it's routinely tested for at this point.
We want to obviously talk about your hospice experience and all of that. But before we do, Colin, is there any way we can get another picture of Ian behind us? I just would imagine that as a mom, the one thing you never want is for your child to be forgotten.
Never.
Right. And so there's Ian, and I guess he's at that point in a wheelchair, right? Tell us about him. What's his personality? What's his personality like?
As you can see, the first row all laughing would be my family and the Gilchrist team who knew Ian quite well. He was all boy, and he went from an all boy toddler to an all boy teenager. He still rolled his eyes. He still made his thoughts and his wants known. But he was a very loving and caring soul. His main concern as his disease progressed was what was going to happen to Mommy, Daddy, and Becca. He wanted to know that we were going to be okay. And I think it wasn't until the very end that he truly believed we would be, and that was what helped him go.
And that was a gift that you gave to him.
Yeah.
I mean, just making him feel that comfort. Was he a Ravens fan?
Because of Daddy, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he could care less if the football game was on. He would actually prefer it not to be.
We also saw baseball jerseys up there before, so.
And again, because of Daddy.
Okay.
Yeah.
So twins have a special bond.
They do.
And so how's Becca?
She has
Is
her
she
good
here?
and her bad days. She's not.
Okay,
We kept
in
her in
school.
school
All
today.
Wise choice.
Yes.
Yeah. She has her good and her bad days. With what I'm learning with grief is that it's a completely individual process. And she got really good, really young at learning how to hide her feelings. And she's just starting to bring out some of that grief and some of that guilt and some of those feelings and just to deal with everything, say within the last month or two. So we're struggling with that, but with the help of Beth and some other great people, we're making it through it.
Take you back in time just a little bit. When did you go to Gilchrist Kids?
I think we first heard about Gilchrist in 2010 or 11.
Ian was how old?
6, 7, 8. I actually have a cousin who's a pediatric geneticist and worked at University of Maryland. And Gilchrist Kids actually went and did a presentation there. And she contacted me and said, this may be great for you for palliative care. And I hem and hawed, and I looked into it. And
Did the word hospice put you off at first?
She didn't approach it with me with hospice.
Okay.
She approached it more with palliative care. I did apply and start to inquire, and I remember at that point, Ian's current geneticist had called me and said, what are you doing? He's not hospice. Why are you calling and looking into this? And I said we were looking at palliative care. You know, he knew my cousin, and I said she mentioned it, and I just wanted to explore options and see what was there. And then in December of 2012, someone from the Gilchrist team actually came out, and we talked to them and kind of were starting to see if we qualified. And Ian decided that in the very beginning of January of 2013, he wanted to get pneumonia and RSV. And we ended up with our longest inpatient PICU stay of 3.5 months,
Wow.
which is when we trached and vented, and we came home with Gilchrist when we came home. And we were with Gilchrist from March of 2013 until September of 2016 when Ian passed away.
For the lay people in the audience, including me,
Yeah.
palliative care is defined as what?
Palliative care is really kind of before hospice, where they kind of come in and you still get their care, but you can still do everything. He still went to school. We still went on family vacations. It made the best quality of life that we could give for both kids.
Once Gilchrist came on the scene and became involved with your family, how did that change things?
It took a little while. We started seeing less doctors. We kind of made our one primary doctor that we would go out of the house to see was Ian's pulmonologist. But everything else, we went through Aaron. Pain management went through Aaron. We even had our pediatrician came out to the house a couple times instead of dragging him into the pediatrician's office. Any questions we had, we went through the Gilchrist team, and they got the answers or found out what we needed instead of us having to drag Ian out of the house. He liked his 4 walls and didn't like to go out very often.
So you had a point person, which made your life, I'm sure,
It made it
infinitely easier.
It did. It did. Ordered all the meds for us, knew what was going on, called at any point in time in the middle of the night, and they were there.
And that's Aaron?
That was Aaron. Yep, Aaron Bull, who was up here first.
Yeah. So I would imagine Aaron feels like family to you.
She does. And I'm still, even though it's been 18 months, we still are in contact and still touch base and still see her at different Gilchrist functions.
Are you at a point as a parent, because Ian hasn't really been gone that long,
Right.
that you feel you can talk with other parents who are maybe new to a situation or new to Gilchrist Kids? Are you doing that kind of a role? I know you've been blogging.
I have been blogging. I do want to find a role as far as helping to educate and make others comfortable with the whole pediatric hospice world because it doesn't have to be scary. It just gave us such peace and hope throughout the whole entire process. And more importantly, it gave Ian that peace and hope. Everybody on the team found a way to communicate with him, to get his needs out, and to figure out what he needed. And we, a lot of times, followed his lead. You had asked, I believe, Beth, about do kids really know what's happening to them? In our situation, 110%. He knew what was going on, when it was going on, and Beth was able to help him articulate what he wanted, and that helped us to be able to make some of the decisions that we made throughout the process.
How do people find your blog?
You can either look up VRK1, which was his mutation. You can search Ian Scher, which I believe it comes up that way. Or my blog is it's mlsbks0422.blogspot.com.
Can that be easier? On your
We'll
blog?
remember.
Yeah.
Yes. And on your blog, you do what? Do you besides tell your story?
A lot of it started by telling our story and finding a way to update people when Ian was going through some of his crises. Instead of getting 10,000 phone calls and 10,000 text messages, it was easier to have everything on the blog. Now, for me, it's still sharing what our journey is and kind of where we're at, as well as I've done a lot of research on bereavement and grief and trying to figure out how to get through that journey, and I've put some things up on there about that.
We talked a little about social media and how that can often help break down walls when a family is grieving or feels isolated. Has it helped you?
It has. It's helped me to be able to keep in touch with people. There's actually a family in Israel whose son has the same mutation, and I've been able to contact with them through, Google Translate a little bit and give them some advice that we've had and what's helped us, and some of the things they can get in Israel and other things they're actually trying to reach out to the United States. Their doctors are trying to see if they can get from here.
Have other parents of children like Ian found you? You mentioned the one.
No.
So it really is that rare, because we said you put anything up
To
on the
our
internet.
knowledge, right, to our knowledge at this point, I'm sure there are other cases out there, but because of HIPAA and everything, I can't really
Yeah.
find out more. I know of 7 cases in the world, 3 of which have passed away and 4 are currently living.
Wow. But of course, there's something you can relate to with any parent has a child in Gilchrist Kids, and there's a certain bond, a certain way you can
It's
help.
a club you don't want to belong
Exactly.
to.
I've said that before. And,
Yeah, unfortunately,
yeah.
it becomes a club that you didn't ask to be a part
Right.
of, but you are, and you try to find the best and some joy in it.
Can you imagine where you would be or where you would have been without the help of Gilchrist? I mean, you were lucky enough to hear.
Insane. A little insane, a little crazy. Because of Gilchrist and some of the other nursing needs that we had, I was able to still maintain working and still have a little bit of sanity outside of the crazy world that my house became. In some ways, my house became a hospital.
Is your blog helping you deal with your grief? You mentioned how Becca was dealing with hers.
It does help me deal. It helps me get some things out there and just be able to share and know that in some ways I'm not alone.
How is the family in Israel using you and your story?
They've been dealing with a lot of pain management issues, and that's the biggest thing that I think they're trying to figure out. Ian had these patches, lidocaine patches, that really helped him with his pain, and they're trying to find a way to get them there for their son.
And it has to be sort of satisfying to you that you can help someone else.
It is. I wish there was more ways that I could do it, but because it's so rare and people are afraid and they step back, that it becomes hard. Even now, people hear that, oh, you lost a son, your child died. They do run. They don't know what to say.
I did want to ask you that. I mean, you have the unique position of being able to talk with other people about how do they talk with people they know. What is the best? I know everyone's going to be different, but in
Right.
general, I think avoidance would be the worst thing.
It can be.
And also the fear that people who feel they can't relate are going to say the wrong thing.
9 times out of 10, the wrong thing can be said, But just remember that, I think it doesn't matter who passes away, what age. Like they've said, death is part of life. It's not the normal life cycle for your child or your grandchild to be the one to go before you. But you aren't going to get over it. You're going to move on, and you're going to move forward, and you're going to get through it. But you don't get over it, and you don't forget that that person was here.
Ever, of course not.
And that's been the thing that I think has been hard for people to realize is doesn't matter how long it's been. There's not a day that goes by that I don't wonder what he would be like if he wasn't sick, or what he would be like even still sick and still laying in his hospital bed in my den. But I look for the joy and try to find some of that. And I'm at the point where I can find sometimes, but you don't get over it. You move on and you get through it, but you're not going to forget. Give the person a hug. If you have nothing to say, give them a hug.
I always,
Listen to them.
I always feel when I say I feel sorry for your loss or my condolences that it doesn't mean anything. Are you saying that it does?
I think it depends on the person. For us, as harsh as sometimes it sounds, and even saying it sounds hard, but there was some relief when Ian passed away. There was relief for him that he was no longer in pain. He gave us one of the best things he could have done is that he passed away on his terms. He went to sleep, and he passed away during the night, and Erin was a 5:45 phone call in the morning, and he wasn't responsive. She was there along with 2 other Gilchrist members as we turned the vent off, and he took his last breath. And it was on his terms, and I think that was also something that he did for us. So it wasn't a decision that we would have to make.
I think we do have a question from either